Okay, now we're going to do some social studies. So you will need your social studies book and you will need the sequencing worksheet that was sent to you last night in an email. Okay, so let's turn to page 186. Lesson 3, Independence. The people living in the 13 English colonies had to obey the laws made by England's king. They thought that some of the king's laws were unfair. See, what was happening was, we've talked about taxes. We've talked about what taxes go for, how they pay for roads and schools and hospitals and things like that. The colonists were paying taxes, but they weren't getting any of the benefits from the taxes from England. So they were paying money to England for things being shipped over here from England, like tea, and they were paying all those taxes and they weren't getting representation. So that's called taxation without representation. That means you're paying this money, but you're not getting a say in how the money is spent. You don't get to see how the money's spent. You don't get the benefits of the money when it is spent. Okay? So the people of the colonies wanted the freedom to make their own laws. Freedom is the right of people to make their own choices. So they wanted, what that says down below says, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They wanted to live their own lives. They wanted liberty, which is freedom, and they wanted the pursuit of happiness, to live their lives the way they wanted to live, to not be told what they can and cannot do by somebody who never even set foot on the land, right? Because he lived in England and people were telling him, well, this is what's going on there and this is what they need, but it wasn't. It was just benefiting the person telling King George, this is what they need. Well, it really wasn't benefiting them. So the first steps to freedom. The leaders of the colonies decided to form their own country. First, they had a meeting. Then the Declaration of Independence was written. The leaders agreed to it on July 4th, 1776. So what a Declaration of Independence is basically a letter or a form that they sent to King George saying, we declare our independence from you and we want to be our own country and we're going to get it. And that's basically what it was. Independence is the freedom of people to choose their own government. The Declaration of Independence said why the colonies should be free. It said that they were now states of a new country, the United States of America. So they named themselves a new country. They were no longer part of England. And they decided that they were going to make their own laws and have their own government. So, the reading check. What happened on July 4th, 1776? Good. The leaders agreed to the Declaration of Independence. Very good. Now, look at all those names. Yes, that's very hard to read because it's so small, but look at all the names below that signed. And one of the biggest signatures was John Hancock. Do you see how big he is? And he wrote so big so that King George would definitely know he was in on it, because he was really upset with how they were not getting represented by their money they were spending and or sending over to England. And what they were doing was against English law, and they could have all gone to jail. They could have all probably been killed for treason. Treason is going against your country's law. So they knew they were going to have a fight. They knew there was going to be a war to get their own freedom. And they were going to go up against a country that had a military, a country that had an army, that had a navy, that had people trained to do this, that had been a country for many, many hundreds of years and knew how to win wars. Well, then you have the 13 colonies that did not have a military. They didn't have a military. They didn't have an army back then. They had what was called a militia. And what a militia is when people in the area fight for their area. Okay, so it would be husbands and dads and older brothers and the men and some women who wanted to do this would pick up their guns and they would fight for their area. There was not an organized military back then. And that is why we have our Second Amendment right. Okay. Page 188, A War for Freedom. The King of England sent soldiers to fight against the people who wanted to be free. This war was called the American Revolution. Many brave people helped the colonies fight to become free country. So if you look at the picture, you have women helping out. Because there was no organized army, these men went back home. So the pictures on page 188, Peter Salem is the one in the circle, was an African-American who had been a slave. He was freed, and then he joined the army and fought bravely to defend his new country. So the army was the militia. And Molly Pitcher, the woman down below in the bigger picture, whose name was really Mary Hayes Macaulay, brought pitchers of cool water to the men fighting. She even took over working a large gun. So that was like a cannon. And why she did that was because she had a husband who was fighting, and her husband was killed. And so she took his place. And she then started fighting in his place and would load the gun so that the other men could continue to fight. She would load the huge cannon. Other countries also helped us win the war. The French helped us win the American Revolution. They sent people over to help us. And I believe the Germans also helped us, or the area which is now Germany also helped us. They had their own reasons why they wanted this country to be free from England's rule. So it wasn't just so that we would be a free country and everything. They had their own reasons, own selfish, like, we can get a part of this country if it's not hooked up to England type of thing. Okay, page 189. The war lasted for 7 years. Finally, the colonies won. They were no longer ruled by England. The 13 colonies were the first 13 states of a free United States of America. And those that are colored are the first 13 states. Now, we call this area, or the area above there, where Massachusetts and Rhode Island and Connecticut, New Hampshire, we call that area New England. Like New England Patriots, okay? It's basically based in Massachusetts, New England Patriots, but they cover that whole area because those states are so tiny. They're like the size of Rancho Cucamonga. They're very small. So what did the King of England do after he read the Declaration of Independence? He sent his army over to stop it, right? He was getting lots and lots of money, lots and lots of furs and everything from this country over to him. And he wanted that to continue, and he didn't want to have to pay for it. So he was like, no, that we're going to fight them and we'll win. But they didn't. We won. Okay, so how do the events of the American Revolution affect us today? We're still a free country, aren't we? We still have our rights. We're still a free country. We're still able to have free speech, and we're able to believe the way we want to believe. We're Christians, we're Catholics, but not everybody is Catholic Christian in this country. And those people are also free to believe in what they want to believe in, or not to believe in what they want to believe in. That is what this country is about, to have freedom. Okay, let's turn the page. Leaders for Freedom. Many people helped win our country's independence. Thomas Jefferson helped write the Declaration of Independence. He later became our third president. So that picture in the circle is Thomas Jefferson. One night, Paul Revere had the very important job of warning people that English soldiers were coming. Because of his courage, the Americans were ready when the soldiers arrived. So that's the picture of Paul Revere's ride. This is an artist's idea of what it looked like. There were two other riders that rode with him. Revere is the best remembered because he was the subject of a famous poem. What might have happened if Paul Revere and the others did not give the warning in time? If they didn't tell everybody, the British are coming, the British are coming. To arms means get your arms, let's go, we're gonna fight. They would have won, right? They could have surprised us and won, and we would be English, I guess. I don't know. Who knows what could have happened? Maybe we wouldn't have discovered, we wouldn't have gone west all the way to California, and we wouldn't be here. Who knows? Page 191. During the American Revolution, George Washington led the army. People trusted him because they knew he was a good leader. After the war, he became our country's first president. So that is a picture of George Washington. Now, an interesting thing is he did not want to become president. And it was kind of peer pressure. They kind of pressured him into it. So he decided to. But they wanted to make him king. And he said, whoa, wait a minute. No. We are getting away from that. That's why we have our independence. We don't want a monarchy anymore. A monarchy is when one king, a family, leads a country. Okay? So in England and France and other ones, they have a monarchy. And that somebody in that family, the oldest in that family, will always be the leader of that country. Who knows if that person's any good, right? Who knows if that person is going to do what the people want? And the whole point of the American Revolution was freedom. Freedom are what we wanted, what we want, what the people want. So George Washington said, I will be the president. I will be the leader. I will not be the king. This country has got to tell the leaders what it wants. The people of this country have to run the government, not one person. And that's what this country became, a country of three branches. That, remember, we learned about the three branches, the judicial, the executive, and the legislative. And they all watch over each other so that one person cannot get too much power, right? So that the people have the power, not one person in the government has so much power. Okay, so the summary, people in the colonies fought a war for independence from England. They won and the colonies became a free country. Woohoo, yes, USA. Okay, so what you're going to do is number 3 on page 191. And you're going to use the worksheet where it says first, next, last. Ta-da! Okay. And you're going to imagine that you are living in one of the new states. Tell about the events that led to the independence in order in which they happened. Okay? So, what happened first? What happened next? What happened last? In our independence. What is the first thing that happened? And because of this, what happened next? And because of this, what happened last? You will find this on page 187, where it says first steps to freedom. You will find the first thing. Read it again. Read the lesson again, and you will find first, next, and last as to what happened for our the Revolutionary War and how we got our freedom. Okay? That led to our independence. And what continues our independence? That's right, voting. Very important to vote. You have to vote. You don't vote, then you can't complain or get upset about what's going on. You gotta vote. Get your vote out there, because that's what these people fought and died for. And that's what everyone else who has been in a war for our country has fought and died for, was your right to vote and how our country is led. So first, next, last, start on page 187 where it says First Steps to Freedom. That's where you're going to have this, and then you'll be able to fill in the rest. Okay? And you will also do page 35, which is a letter from Samuel. And it says, read the letter from Samuel, a soldier in the American Revolution. Underline the sentences that tell why he is fighting the war. Then answer the questions. Underline the sentences. You must underline the sentences that tell why he is fighting this war. And then answer the questions, okay? So that's social studies, and we'll be right back for some science.